Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with The Little Princess. Chapter 7, Intrigue in the Square. In the evening, when Sara passed houses whose windows were ablaze with light, she liked to look in the warm, inviting rooms and imagine things about what the people she saw. There were several families in the square with whom Sara had become quite familiar. The one she liked best was called the Large Family. She gave them that name because there were so many of them. There were 8 children in the Large family, a large and loving mother and a father, a doting grandmother, and a number of servants. The Large family was always doing something fun and enjoyable. They were a wonderful family, Sara thought, and she gave them names out of the books, quite romantic names like Ethelberta Beauchamp, Lillian Evangeline, and Claude Harold Hector. She called them the Montmorencys when she did not call them the Large family. One evening, a funny thing happened. Several of the Montmorencys were leaving to go to a children's party just as Sara was passing by on their house on one of their errands. 2 of their sisters, whom Sara referred to as Veronica, Eustacia, and Rosalind Gladys, beautifully outfitted in red and green plaid woolen coats over white lace dresses with stiff white sashes, and crossed the street and got into their waiting carriage. Their 5-year-old brother, whom Sara called Guy Clarence, was following close behind. He was such a cute little boy with big blue eyes and dark curly hair, all dressed up in his best party clothes, that Sara forgot her basket and shabby cloak altogether. In fact, she forgot everything that she wanted to take a longer look at him. It was Christmas time, and the Large family had been hearing many stories about unfortunate children who were poor and didn't have parents to help them hang up in their stockings to take them to a puppet show. In fact, there were children who didn't even have enough to eat or nice clothes to wear. In the holiday spirit, kind people often stepped forward and gave them poor children money or gifts, or invited them to their homes, or just for a festive dinner. It had been so happened that little Guy Clarence had been close to tears that afternoon when he heard one such sad story. Right then and there, he resolved to find a needy child and give him or her a coin he owned, which was certain would take care of all the poor children's financial needs for life. The truth was that his coin, safe in his pocket, was only worth about 6 pennies. As he looked across the street, he saw Sara standing on the wet pavement looking at him wistfully. He thought her eyes looked hungry because she had nothing to eat for a long time. What Sara was really hungry for was the happy home life Guy Clarence enjoyed with his family. However, Guy Clarence knew only that this poor girl had big eyes, a thin face, and legs, and shabby clothes. So Guy put on his hand in his pocket and walked right up to her. "Hey, you poor little girl," he said. "Here's a 6pence. I would like to give it to you." All at once, Sara realized how long it had been since her father had died. Miss Minchin had banished her to the attic. She realized that she looked exactly like the poor children she used to see in the London streets, straining for a glimpse of her as she got into her own fancy carriage. Her face turned red and pale. For a second, she felt as if she could not accept the coin. "Oh, no," she said. "Oh, no, thank you. I couldn't take that." Her voice was so like that of an ordinary street child, and her manner was more like that of a broad girl that Veronica Eustacia, whose real name was Janet, and Rosalind Gladys, who was really called Nora, leaned forward to the carriage to listen. Guy Clarence would not take no for an answer. Immediately he shoved the 6pence into Sara's hand. "Yes, you must take it," he insisted. "You can buy a lot with this. It's a whole 6pence. "Thank you," she said. "You are very kind." As he scrambled happily back into his carriage, Sara went on her way, trying to smile, although she felt tears welling in her eyes. She had thought she might look a little odd and disheveled, but she lost track of how long she had been living in the attic at Miss Minchin's. Until now, she hadn't realized she had come to look like a beggar. As the Large family's carriage drove away, the children had all discussed what had happened. "Oh, Donald," Guy Clarence's real name, Janet exclaimed, "why did you offer that girl your 6pence? I'm sure she's not a beggar." She didn't look like a beggar, Nora said, and her face didn't look like a beggar's face. Besides, she didn't beg. Janet went on. I was so afraid that she might be angry with you. You know, people, it makes people angry to be taken for beggars when they are not. She wasn't angry, Reed Donald answered. She laughed a little, said I was a very nice boy. And I was. It was my whole sixpence. A beggar girl would never have said that, Janet said. She would have said, thank you kindly, little gentleman. Thank you, sir. Of course, Sara never knew this discussion, but as time passed, the large family became as interested in her as she was in them. She is kind of a servant at Miss Minchin's boarding school, Janet said one day. I believe she's an orphan, but she's not a beggar, however shabby she looks. Afterward, the whole family called Sara the little girl who is not a beggar. It was a rather long name and sounded funny when the youngest children said it in a hurry. Sara managed to cut a hole in the coin as she hung it around her neck on a narrow ribbon. As time passed, her affection for the large family increased. At the same time, her feelings for Becky grew stronger. Sara became so friendly with the rat Melchizedek. He brought Mrs. Melchizedek with him sometimes, as well as one or two of their children. Sara enjoyed talking to him. He always looked as if he understood. One night, Sara returned to the attic colder and sadder than usual. I can't bear this, said the poor little girl out loud, trembling. I'm cold, I'm wet, I'm starving. Walking 1,000 miles a day. And the people have done nothing but scold me. The cook refused to give me dinner. Some men laughed at me when my old shoes made me slip and fall. Now I'm all covered with mud. Sara looked at Emily with her glass eyes and her pretty frozen face staring straight ahead. Suddenly a kind of heartbroken rage seized her. In one swift stroke she knocked Emily off her chair and burst into tears. After a while, Sara stopped sobbing and picked up Emily in her arms. You can't help being a doll, she said with a sigh. I'm sure you do your sawdust-filled best. And she kissed the doll her father bought her long ago and placed her back on the chair. Sara hoped very much that someone would buy or rent the empty house next door, because the next door attic window was near hers. She thought how nice it would be to suddenly see it pop open one day. Another person standing there, anxious to say hello and be friends. One morning, when Sara came around to see the corner of the stairs, she was surprised to see a large cart that stood next door. The front doors were open. Men in shirt sleeves were going in and out, carrying heavy packages and pieces of furniture. Someone's moving in, Sara thought. I do hope some nice people will live there. Later, when Sara returned with a heavy basket from the grocer's, her heart skipped a beat. She saw some pieces of furniture sitting on the sidewalk. There was a beautiful table of elaborately worked teak wood, some unusual chairs, and a screen covered by rich oriental embroidery. The sight of them gave her a weird homesick feeling. She had so many things like these in India. The van of furniture came and went all day long, and it was soon plain to Sara that the owners were rich people. Wonderful rugs, draperies, paintings, ornaments, and books, enough to fill a library, were unloaded. Among the other things was a gold statue in a splendid box. They must have lived in India, Sara thought. They appreciate Indian things. That evening, she saw something that made the situation more interesting than ever. The father of the large family walked across the square and ran up to the steps of the house next door. He stayed inside for a while and several times came outside and gave directions to the workmen. It was obvious he knew the newcomers and was acting on their behalf. The night after the work was done, Betty came to see her fellow prisoner and bring her news. An Indian gentleman is coming to live next door, miss, she said. He's very rich, and he's ill. He's the father who you call the large family is his lawyer. He's had a lot of trouble that made him ill. Sara was very curious to see what his wife and children would be like if he had a family. It was several weeks before she knew. The newcomer did not have a family. He was leaving alone and could see he was both unhealthy and an unhappy person. The carriage drove up one day and stopped in front of the house. When the footman came down from the box and opened the door, the father of the large family got out first. After him came a nurse in uniform and 2 manservants. The head of the large family went in and looked very anxious. Shortly afterward, a doctor arrived and hurried inside. "The gentleman next door, Sara," Lottie whispered in French class afterward. "Do you think he's Chinese?" "No, he isn't Chinese," Sara whispered back. "His skin looks yellow because he's ill. Go with your exercise, Lottie." That was the beginning of the story of the mysterious Indian gentleman. And that's the end of that chapter. See you later.